Anyway, my name is Carl Miller and I'm on the board of the Phoenixville Historical Society. I'd like to first thank John Keenan and the Society for creating a forum that we can bring together some incredible people to share the stories of Bridge Street from the 1950s almost to the current day. Our panelists that have joined us this evening are going to share some incredible stories about the places where we shopped when Bridge Street was a retail dynamite, and when we went to sidewalk sales and walked around at Christmas time under beautiful lights, and we looked at windows painted for Halloween, and we developed such incredible memories and friendships, all being a part of a small town like Phoenixville. If everybody would just take a second, close your eyes, and think back. You're walking downtown, you run in grants, you climb those incredible steps to the second floor, where you see the fish and everything that they had upstairs. And you walk outside from there, and you go across the street to Charlie Gutowski's record store, and you buy the latest hits and all. And then you walk down a little further down the bridge, and you stop in Seacrest, and you get a vanilla Coke. And you say hello to Bessie. She's sitting there punching out lottery tickets at 101 years of age. You walk down a little further and you stop in and you see Angie Jaworski at Jaworski's Music Shop. And you cross the street and you stop in the Trio and grab some lunch. And then you come up to the Gold District, that 200 block of Bridge. And that's who we have here tonight. So I'd like to take a second and introduce our panelists, starting down on the end. Judy Bat Yarnell. Judy deserves a second round of applause because she flew up from Florida. She wanted to honor her mother and father and their contributions to Phoenixville. And any of you that grew up in Phoenixville will recall Bat's stores just lining one side of Bridge Street back in the day. Sitting next to Judy, Joan Sikorsky D'Antonio and Beth Sikorsky Mastrangelo. Everybody shopped at Wendy's. And they were kind enough to take some time out of their schedule to join us tonight to share some memories on behalf of Conrad Whitey Sikorsky and the store that he ran for 50 years. Next to the Sikorsky sisters, we have Ed Wings Wisniewski. Ed's family history on Bridge Street goes longer than anybody else, I believe, in the room. Ed's grandfather started McFadden's back in the 1930s. And he's got some incredible stories to share with us this evening. And finally, we have Ken and Sandy Zimmerman and their daughter Rachel, who had Heidi Sue Variety. Heidi Sue was an institution. Their building was an institution because if you didn't shop at Heidi Sue, you probably shopped at Newberry's or one of the many other variety stores that occupied that building over the years. So we're going to take some time tonight to ask some questions, have our panelists tell some stories about their stores and Bridge Street from the era that they helped make this town's economic engine drive. And we're going to start with Judy. Again, Judy, thank you so much for joining us. When I reached out to Judy, I thought maybe she would send us something to display. Instead, she sent herself.
Is that better? Yeah. First time I ever used a microphone. Both their parents were in retail business. my father's parents owned a grocery store in Coatesville, and they owned real estate in Coatesville. And my mother's parents owned a men's clothing store and a jewelry store, and my father attended Wharton Business School, so he knew he was going to get involved in retail business.
And how was it that they decided to go into business in Phoenixville, of all places?
That is a good question. My father worked in my mother's parents' stores for a number of years, and I think they thought there was a void in Phoenixville, and they figured it was a good place for them to start. That year that they started, I got very sick, and I got encephalitis from a bee sting. And so that first year was tough because my mother was in the hospital with me on the critical list, and but luckily I got better and I passed on the way here. The Philadelphia Children's Hospital has now located here, which is interesting. Yeah.
So their first store was Bat's Toyland, if I recall correctly, in 1956. Tell us about the toy store.
Well, I was limited to what I was allowed to get from the toy store. And I think that was, it made sense. Now I wish I had some of the stuff that I did get, like the Barbie dolls, and they would be valuable now. But I spent a lot of time in the stores, and I used to, well, I was at Gay Street Elementary School, and we went home for lunch. So instead I walked to their businesses, and I had lunch there every day. I used to do a lot through the years. I did a lot of gift wrapping, and just spent very wonderful time as part of the school. I mean, as part of the school, as a part of the store.
So the toy store is operating. Next, they decide they're going to go into the clothing business, and they open Lad and Lassie shop.
Yes. I think they just realized, again, that that was something that the town needed. They had good insight into the future.
And then they eventually opened a third store, which was the teen shop. So
Yes.
they had 202, 204, 206 Bridge.
Right.
Okay. And what was the teen shop like?
And the teen shop, well, there were no other, I think that they opened stores because people had to go far to get those things, but maybe Grants had them. I don't really remember what Grants had. But the teen shop, I think, thrived as well.
Now, was your mom or dad the bot? Like, who decided what merchandise would
Well,
be sold in the
that's a
store?
really interesting question, because I did go to all the shows with them to pick out the merchandise through the years. We went to New York, and mostly New York, to buy the merchandise.
And your mother must have had exceptional taste, or your dad did, because the stores were incredibly successful for decades.
Yes, yeah, they always got dressed up. They always looked great.
So they expanded their empire. It wasn't just Phoenixville. They had other stores outside of the area too, correct?
Yes, they opened a store in Wayne on the main line, and they also opened a store in the Sheraton Hotel, a gift shop. And I'm trying to remember. Yeah, that was.
So you never saw them.
As a matter of fact, they came home at 6 o'clock, and it was time for their children. So I never felt at all like they worked too hard or I was neglected in any way.
So operating 5 stores, all the work that would go into that, and they're still home every night with you at 6 o'clock.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
yeah.
Now, when I was going through some history of the town, and I don't remember this, but you told me what it was and what the meaning of it was. Somewhere along the way, there pops up this store on the corner of Bridge and Main called Sweetsies.
Yes.
Does anybody remember Sweetsies? Because I didn't. There was a store, it's where Philly Fades is right now, if you know downtown. There was a store on the corner called Sweetsies. Tell us about Sweetsies, Judy.
Well, I think the most important thing is they named the store because my father called my mother Sweetsie. And they were so beautifully connected in marriage and in life.
And Sweetsies was a candy shop, you said, yes?
Yes.
What do you think your parents saw in Phoenixville? Because they stayed here in the retail industry for decades. What was the magic of Phoenixville? And what was it for you?
I think that they wanted to have their own business, and I'm sure they shopped around, and I was only 5 at the time. But there was an opening to do that, and they took advantage of that opening.
Do you recall any special traditions at the store? And we're showing some pictures on the side of you, and there's this adorable photo of your parents with a clown. I love that picture. They just look like they're having the time of their lives. And so you had clowns visiting. Were there specific traditions at that, or anything that you remember, like was an occasion for a sale or something going on in the store?
Well, Christmas, they always had Santa Claus. And they had I wish I would have kept it, but they had one of the horses that you put a dime in.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that was out.
I would have kept that.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
How involved, aside from the stores, how involved were your parents with the Phoenixville community at large? I'm sure as
Well-
retailers, they had business connections and affiliations, and you were in Phoenixville for years.
And my mother always did volunteer work. She worked at the hospital gift shop for years and years, and she always volunteered. I think she was the president of the PTO in the elementary school that I went to.
So you're a fixture on Bridge Street for 30 years. And then came the decision it was time to move on. You would have been an adult by then, I'm guessing.
Yes.
So do you remember how it was that your parents came to that decision? It had to be heartbreaking after being a part of the community for so long.
I think that things are transforming now where you can buy things online, so the stores are really struggling, the best of stores. And the same thing happened to them when the King of Prussia Mall opened. So luckily they were at a point in their life where they could sell the business and move to Florida, and I moved to Florida with them. So, yeah, that's,
Now I know you're running a school these days, correct?
Yes.
Tell us about your school.
well, we've owned the school for 38 years. We owned a much larger school in the beginning, and my husband passed away about 20 years ago, so we downsized, and we had property to build a big school at the time, but right when we were ready to do that, he passed away. But now we started doing just after-school tutoring, and we were seeing 30 children a night for after-school tutoring. And then we decided to start the school, and after he passed away, we were doing full-time private tutoring, and we do full-time private tutoring now, where all the students that come to us actually get tutored full-time every day privately, and they have their own space. So they all have their own little office, and the teachers move around every 45 minutes to each child, and it's been interesting, and from what I understand from accreditation, it's really unique in the world, internationally.
Fantastic.
As well as nationally.
And I'm guessing, given your history, it's a family school.
Yes.
You have family involved. Your parents came and helped you start the school?
My
Or-
parents did. My mother did the books. My father, I think, was happy to be retired. So
And do you have children involved?
I do have a son that is involved, yes, yes.
Do you have any memories of downtown Phoenixville specifically that you'd like to share with us?
It was just everything was so pleasant. It just all fit into place, and our life revolved around it, but we didn't feel as if it was anything but wonderful.
Awesome. Judy, thank you so much for sharing your memories. And now, again, I'd like to reintroduce Joan Sikorsky D'Antonio and Beth Sikorsky Mastrangelo, who with their father ran Whitey's for nearly 50 years. So, I'm hoping one of you will start by sharing the story of Conrad Sikorsky.
Wow. Let's see here. When he was in high school at Phoenixville, he was the drum major. I don't know if people realize that. With the band. And,
So he was a Phoenixville born and raised?
yeah, he was. And when my parents first got married, he worked at Goodrich for a while. And then he ended up he did retail when he was young, a lot younger, you know what I mean, before he went into the service. And he worked for Phoenix Variety. They were owned by, I believe, AC Mangles, the paint factory in Phoenixville. And he worked there until 1961. They also owned a business in York, Pennsylvania, called York Paint and Hardware. He went there and managed that. And then Phoenix Variety was up for sale, so he decided to come back. He bought the business, and a few years later, bought the building.
And he was always in the building on Bridge Street?
Yeah.
How was it, by the way, that he came to be known as Whitey?
Oh, I think everybody in Phoenixville had a nickname back then. And actually, he was a towhead as a kid, so blonde hair.
What was Whitey's target market when, who came into your store?
Everybody in Phoenixville.
Exactly.
Other businesses, we knew all our customers basically by name.
And that seems to be a hallmark of Phoenixville businesses. I think everybody that's sitting up here at these tables, we were back sharing some stories before the talk started. Back in the day, you knew your customer. Your customer walked in the door, they were greeted with a hello. I was joking with Wings about Mickey McFadden, who never failed to greet you by your first name as you walked in the store. Same thing, I remember walking in Whitey's, and if not your dad, you two and your sister, hi Carl, how's everything? It just made, you don't get that when you go shopping these days. Tell us about the layout of Whitey's, because you were quite a big store.
Well, the first floor we had housewares, hardware, plumbing, electrical, and second floor was toy lane. And third and fourth floor basically was extra stock and layaways, like at Christmas time. A lot of layaways.
A lot of
A
layaways?
lot of layaways.
You didn't have an elevator. I'm thinking you're running up and down the steps all the time.
We had an elevator now.
Good. And when did the two of you go to work at Ladies?
I went when I was 14. My first Christmas.
Did you have a specific job at 14?
Oh, yeah, I was on Toyland. Yeah, that's where I learned.
Okay.
Toyland.
Yeah. That.
Well, by the time when I wanted money, when the mall started, I was told to get off the bus, bring the school bag on my back, and walk over town to the store. And I learned how to dust and rotate the merchandise and what it was and mark it and order it.
You must know hardware inside out.
I've been too long, but if I wanted money, that's what I had to do. But I learned a lot from it, and my father taught us a lot, and all the customers, to know all the people by their names, and that's, the part we miss. Sometimes you see somebody and you're like, think, think, think. And if you walk away, you're like, now I know.
Were the two of you, your sister and your dad, involved in the larger Phoenixville business community? Were there activities you were involved in, or organizations like the Chamber or PAVA?
No, not that I remember.
How did you see, now you were on Bridge Street, like I said, 50 years. How did you see Bridge Street change in that time?
A lot.
Yeah, I remember when there was a lot of parking. So when they came and said, well, we want to make these cutouts and put these planters there, that was no fun. We heard it every night at supper time. They're taking away our parking. But, we also had competition. We had other hardware stores.
Right.
We had
Acton and Fry.
Town Supply, we had Terrytown. Yeah, so,
And how did you distinguish yourself as a business?
well, we carried what we needed here in town. So if somebody was looking for something for their older homes, we had it. Or if we didn't have it, my father would, if they called on the phone, my dad said, have it for you in 2 weeks, no problem. And people waited around for it.
Were there any specific traditions at Whitey's? We were joking. I don't know why I remember this, but your father always had a 22 sale, where everything in this, certain items would be like 8.22 or 10.22, and I remember him advertising that. But other traditions.
His mind he always thought, if you ever saw the window display, it would take hours and days, and he would not stop until he got it the way he wanted it.
Was that all him? Did you help
It was all him.
Because I remember some incredible displays in those windows.
We used to wrap stovepipe to build things up.
Yeah, to make stacks. Yes, he had a lot of glass.
Yeah.
And a lot of glass. Yeah, he cut glass, we made keys, we
Fix storm windows,
screens, storm windows.
Did you learn how to fix a storm window?
I could cut glass.
Jeremy and Barb, they learned how to take care of the coal heater.
We had cold.
We had coal heat.
So you would have to go downstairs and shovel coal?
Every morning.
Wow.
Yes.
Open the damper, shovel it in. We had cold until we left there.
Yeah, we
You had coal heat?
Yeah, we left there in 2000. Yes, we did.
That's
Coal bins came in through the back of the store. Just like so. Yes.
And how much coal, do you have any idea how much coal you would go through heating that building? Because that building was huge.
They used to have to shoot it in through the back door
Okay?
to get it to the coal bin, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And some wheelbarrow, some of it in. That was the good old days.
Towards the end, the first floor was the only one we worried about heating because there was nothing, on the second floor anymore when Toys Land closed.
Okay.
So we didn't have to really heat that, but.
Sure. there were so many events that Bridge Street was famous for. I think we have one picture, the sidewalk sales.
Oh, yeah.
My God, there's 1,000 people lining the streets of Phoenixville for a sidewalk sale. And I think the one for, there we go. Tell us about the sidewalk sales, if you remember anything about it.
It was a big deal. We prepared for that. He would bring in all new merchandise. And it was a big deal for us, yeah. He cried on that.
He loved stuff like that.
Yeah, he loved it, yeah.
Yeah, I remember our main things would be clothespins and clotheslines. GE light bulbs, we sold a lot of GE light bulbs.
It's so funny because you don't even see clotheslines anymore.
I'm telling you now, you've got the goods. Yeah.
Halloween time, everybody painted windows.
Yes. Wings took care of that.
More than having wings, that's true. We've got more coming with that. Any special memories of your years on Bridge Street?
I have one special memory. It was the first year I worked there. It was 1966, and we had many layaways still there. It was Christmas Eve day, and we had a blizzard. We had thunder and lightning, snow all day. People were panicking because they couldn't come get their layaways. I mean, you could walk, but how were you going to take all that home? So my dad, he delivered on a regular, every day he went after lunch and delivered. People would call for stuff and he delivered it. So they wanted their layaways delivered. And my other sister, Barbara, and I, he left us go early because we didn't know how we were going to get home. That's how much snow we had. We had to shovel the car out of the parking lot. We barely got there. I mean, you know, front-wheel drive cars back then didn't go very far, but we did. We made it home. And he ended up calling his friends at Friendship Fire Company. And they came and got him and all the layaways, and they delivered them.
Your father made Christmas,
Right.
1966. There's probably kids all over this town wondering how on earth Santa Claus got to them that way.
The thing was like,
How did you come to a decision, you know, like I said, 50 years on Bridge Street? How did you come to a decision to
Well,
close?
a lot of our suppliers, we were losing a lot of suppliers. They were all going out of business. You know, they wanted to sell to big box stores. And he used to drive to Packard Avenue. We had a supplier called Right Way, and he'd drive down there twice a week to get merchandise. And, you know, he was up there in age, and then people were interested in the building. And we just all decided, you know, it's time. And he was worried about what we would do, but we all survived. And yeah, so some people came and bought the building, and now it's the Art Center.
What did you do after the business closed? Because I still see both of you around town. So you're still fixtures.
I took a little time off, and then I got bored after about 2 months, and then Kmart was getting ready to open, so I went there, applied for a job, got hired. We set that store up in 6 weeks, and it opened in April. And I was there for 18 years.
And that?
And I actually got hired by Phoenixville Federal Bank and Trust at 120 Main Street. I didn't go far.
You didn't go far at all.
I'm there 24 years, so yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we banked up there. We went up there to go close the account, and the branch manager that was there at that time was Ruth Ann Shaw.
I remember you there.
And she said, "I'll take all three of you," I need tellers. And we're all looking at her going, "We just like to have about a month off." And then she kept asking me, and I said, "Oh, I guess, I don't know. I'll try it." And my biggest fear was that I wasn't sure how people were gonna feel, because I knew a lot of people, and it turned out that a lot of people, they liked that I was there, and they were comfortable, and then I was comfortable.
Awesome.
In those 24 years.
One last question. How does it feel when you walk past the art studio, which occupies the old building? How do you, like, what memories does that stir up? How does it feel to walk past something that was such a huge part of your lives?
Big part,
Yeah, very big
Yeah.
part. I look at it every time I drive down Bridge Street, from the top to the bottom.
I look at it when I come over to High Bridge, the back of it, and say, it still looks the same. It's still there, it still looks the same. Yeah.
That's
4
fantastic.
floors, yeah, I mean, when you look at it, it looks like the
It's a huge building.
Yeah, it is.
very tall building.
Beth and Joe, thank you so much. If you're from Phoenixville, you know wings. Everybody knows wings. I went to grade school with your brother Bob,
Yeah,
who I think lives in Florida now.
yeah, he
Also,
lives in,
yes?
down in Florida, him and his wife.
Okay. Please tell him I said hello.
I will. I spoke to him, actually, I call him, or he calls me every 2 or 3 weeks. We talk every Sunday, on a Sunday night, he'll call me or I'll call him. And he called me Sunday night, so I will relay it next time I talk to him.
Please do. Bobby and I sang on the Good Ship
Lobby at St. Anne's School, up in the auditorium. I remember that.
Wait, your grandfather was the pioneer of McFadden's.
Yes, he was.
Can you tell us a little bit about William McFadden?
Yeah, he worked for a clothing store in Phoenixville, J. Smith Clothing. And he worked for them he worked a couple other places, but that's the one that he ended up, Mr. Smith died and Mrs. Smith found out my grandfather was interested in buying this store. So she sold it to a company out of Philadelphia called the Bowling Company. And then in 1936, they sold it to him. So he ran it from 1936 until 1965 when he passed away. Now, sometime between then, they moved from 214, which is where Endicott Johnson was. And then they moved down to the corner, which is the empty lot where the mural is on the old Fazzini building. And in March 18th, 1970, there was a fire, and then that destroyed that building. And then my Uncle Pat moved up to the corner, or up to 234 Bridge, and that is where I came in and took over later on, and ended up down at the old back building.
So, along with your grandfather, you had your mother and your uncle and aunt who were McFaddens.
Yeah, my mom, my Uncle Pat, my mother, and my Aunt Mickey were brother and sister.
And again, everybody knew Mickey McFadden.
Yeah, everybody knew Aunt Mickey. She was Aunt Kick.
And Kit,
Yeah,
where did Kit come from?
One of the kids couldn't say her name, and it just went from Mickey to Kicky. And when you left her, she gave you a kiss. And she gave you a kiss on the back of your neck. You went over to her and you went like that. And she gave you a kiss on the back of her neck. That was Aunt Mickey.
Were they raised in the store?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Because my grandfather, my Uncle Pat worked for him, and Aunt Mickey started, I don't know when she started. And then when my grandfather died, my Uncle Pat took it over the store and ran it until I took over.
What was the experience of shopping at McFadden's? I'm thinking personalized service and a fine selection of clothing, and you were walked through and...
Yeah, that's the thing that you lack today in shopping retail. Everybody, like everyone else sitting here today will say, you knew everybody in town. They would come in, hey Wings, I need a suit. Kenny Jeffries would come in, he needed a tie for a wedding. I would tie it on him and then he'd go to the I mean, you knew everybody, people would come in, sorry, Kenny. And then he wouldn't untie it, he'd take it off and pull it over his head. He said, that's where I put it in my closet till the next time I needed it. But those, I mean, that's what you had friends that shopped there, and you did what you could to make them look nice. And we had one of the best tailors in Phoenixville,
Who was your tailor?
Larry Barushki. Larry Barushki was the best tailor by far. And I spent 30 years in the clothing business, and he was the best tailor I've ever seen in my life.
Larry ended up having a tailor shop on Church Street.
He
yes.
bought Mr. Greenstein's tailor shop when my grandfather was still alive. So he bought that in late 50s, early 60s.
Okay.
And he did all the tailoring. And Dave Greenstein, my grandfather said to Dave Greenstein, said, hey, what kind of a tailor is he? And he says, he's better than I am, and he'll be fine. So my grandfather was fine with Larry doing all the tailoring.
So Larry would have his own shop, but was also your tailor.
Yeah, we would mark it and do the measurements, and then we'd take them up and drop it off, and then a couple days later, we'll pick it up, and he did all our tailoring.
When did you go to work at McFadden's, please?
I started in 1971, 72. I was in high school, and I found out the first day of senior year we had co-op, and I didn't have a job. I worked for Gino's at the time on weekends. For those of you who remember where Gino's was. And so I went down and I talked to my mom, and she tried to talk me out of it. And I went down and asked my Uncle Pat for a job, and it took him like 2 weeks to decide. And then he hired me, and he was surprised at what I learned at the tech school, because I took distributive education, which is retailing, merchandising, and so he was surprised when I got there, and he would give me jobs to do that I didn't know how to do it because I helped run the school store. So that's where I started in the clothing business.
Did you eventually become a buyer?
Oh yeah,
Did you do the buying for the store?
Me and Aunt Mickey, that's what we did. She was my right arm. I couldn't have done it without her. My mom worked there, my sister would help out, my dad would come down on Fridays to work, but when he'd get there, him and I would go out for dinner. And then, my dad didn't work, he just came down and he was moral support. But he did work over the years, he worked for my grandfather over the years. My mom did, and that's pretty well. Yes, he was a paper hanger. My dad was a painter and paper hanger when he wasn't working at the iron company. Because he worked at Phoenixville, and he would get laid off, and then he would go out and paint paper hanger.
I'm thinking back to like the 70s in downtown Phoenixville. You had a lot of competition in the menswear. There was a time when, before King of Prussia blew up, I guess, or whatever. But I'm just thinking, just thinking out loud. You had
Allen's men's store.
You had SB Harris. And Harris was like 2 stores up from you.
Yeah, they were right next to Ladies.
Right next to Ladies,
yeah. Yeah, Harris's, you had Clinton Mosteller.
You had Phillips.
You had Jack Stauffer's men's shop, which is right behind where Grant's was, up on Main Street Hill. It's now an Asian restaurant, I believe. You had Benny Gross down around the corner, and then over the years after Benny went out of business, a guy by the name of Bernie Wassel, who I went to school with, opened a place called the Gentleman's Cove for a few years. So yeah, you had a lot of men's stores. You had 3 or 4 shoe stores. I forget how many ladies, Sherishures, Straws. What was the one?
The Lee shop, Wally's.
And Wally and Straubs, those 2 gentlemen were brothers.
Really?
Walter and Walter, what was the other Mr. Straub? The other Mr. Straub. Because that's what I remember, is that Mr. Straub and Mrs. Straub and Flo Straub. Yeah, they were brothers and each had a lady shop.
It's just funny because you think of that, like 5, 6 men's stores, 4 shoe stores, 4 or 5 women's stores. You've got none of that today.
No.
There isn't a retail environment in small towns any longer, and I think the towns suffer as a result.
Oh, sure it does. You look at downtown, people ask me, still go downtown? I said, I go to Mom's on Saturday mornings for breakfast. And I said,
Which was Yeager's, yes?
which is Yeager's paint store, is where Mom's is now. I said, I go there Saturday morning for breakfast, and I said, I kind of like, I hate to say this, avoid downtown.
Me too.
Only because there's not a good balance. There's a lot of restaurants and bars, but there's not enough retail. And King of Prussia and all these malls didn't help over the years. So it just,
Malls killed retail, and now Amazon is
it's
killing
killing,
malls.
yeah, online sales is killing malls.
So maybe downtown retail will kill Amazon.
I won't live to see it.
So a couple things I remember specifically about McFadden's, if you could share with us. The Soup Club.
Yeah, we ran it for 20 weeks, and it was $2 a week. You could have as many clubs as you wanted, and you would build up $40 worth of credit for one ticket. And then each week there was a drawing, and if your name come up, your club was paid off from that week on. And you would accumulate, I mean, Nancy, I see you sitting over there. Your mom and dad were down there every Friday night with Walter Gould and LMA Gould and Clarence Smith and Virginia Smith coming down to pay. They would go to Phoenixville to pay their Christmas clubs. And then they would come downtown and they'd go to all the ladies and men's shops that had the merchandise clubs, and they'd pay their clubs, and then they would redeem it at Christmas time or whatever
That's awesome.
on merchandise.
And how about the Shamrock Tree?
I don't know if that picture's in one of the folders I brought down today, but that was something that, we had a small Christmas tree we had used in the window, and we went down to see Pearl Sprout, and my Aunt Mickey and I came up with this idea of putting a shamrock tree up for St. Patrick's Day. So we went down in Pearl, and I think Joni, you were there, I don't know if Beth was there, and Barb was there, and we wanted green Christmas lights. So we took whatever they had, and we decorated it green, and my Aunt Mickey took doilies with shamrocks and cut them out, and that's what we and my wife's Uncle Bumper heard about it at the Gateway and walked downtown to see our shamrock tree. And I used to have a picture, I don't know if it's in that album I brought, of me, my Aunt Mickey, and my Uncle Pat standing next to the shamrock.
To the Shamrock Tree. I remember that Shamrock Tree. The weekly Phoenix football kicks. McFadden's always had a block in there.
Yeah, that was just something the newspaper ran, and they would have enough, I forget how many teams they would put, like 10 or 15 teams, and they would pick, and I think the newspaper gave a monetary prize.
$25 for first prize, 15 for second. I know I won.
Okay, there you go. And it was all college, college football teams.
They had high school too. They also had.
I think they would put Phoenixville as the one.
Phoenixville was.
Yeah.
Yep. So you mentioned it briefly, but there was a devastating fire in 1970.
Yeah, March 18, 1970, I was in 10th grade at the high school, and it was career day out there. And there was a fire in the building upstairs in one of the apartments. And I remember Henry Roddick, who was acting chief at the time, and he came late to career day, and I was in the class that he was supposed to speak at. And he said, I'm sorry, there was a fire downtown at the McFadden building. And I'm like, panic. So as soon as the class was over, I ran down to the phone booth in front of the high school, right across from the main office. I get in the phone booth, and where do I call? I call the store. 933-3313. I called the store. Why I called the store, but I was a 10th grader. So my mom answered the phone. And I said, are you okay? She said, yeah, we're okay. The firemen are telling us to get out now again. So I said, all right, I'll talk to you later. So at around 4 o'clock, they got the fire out. And around 4 o'clock, my father was still downtown in Secret. And a lady came out and said, there's smoke coming out of that building again. My dad went out, pulled the alarm, and started directing traffic on the middle main bridge. And then that's when the fire started up again and ran into the night. and until like the next day, until they finally got it out.
People that either weren't in town then or that don't remember, it was a huge fire. There were 16 apartments. How many apartments were there?
I don't remember, to be honest with you. I know the one floor we used to take things up and store it, but there was like three or four, I don't know, roughly 4 apartments or so in there. And then I remember the Willow Grove Second Alarmers came, and I remember seeing pictures in the newspaper of the Willow Grove Second Alarmers were in the middle of the street, and at night, they had this tower on the top of their truck, and it went up and it lit the whole street up like daylight. And that was all, as you see that's the second floor, third floor.
The building was never rebuilt.
No.
That building that you see in that picture is where Renaissance Park is now.
Leon DiDomenico, who owned Lee's Steak Shop, owned the building, and they never rebuilt it. And I remember my uncle being at the attorney, and Jack Dietrich was his insurance guy at the time, and they were at the lawyer's office as this was going on, looking at options and things, what they could do. So.
You picked up and moved on though. You kept the business going despite that.
Yeah, it was, I actually, when I took over in '84, I was working for the newspaper, and the editor, or the publisher, Pat Crossan, a lady by the name of Pat Crossan, came up to me and said, hey, you know what, you're out on the street, because I was in the ad department, so I was out at Whitey's and places getting ads every day. And she said, did you hear anything about something going in? At the time, Mrs. Neil Thorpe had bought the building, the back building. And she said, is somebody going into a men's store going in down there? I said, nah, I don't know nothing. I have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. But I'll see if I can find out anything. Well, I knew about it because it was me. And I had gone to National Bank of Boyertown. Bill Rambo helped me through this, and I went to the National Bank of Boyertown and got a loan there, and with the help of my father and mother, I opened it up, and then I moved from there, from 234 Bridge down to 202, which is the back building, where we ended up taking the old teen shop and toilet, the second and third part of the building. On the corner was Century Coin, and then I took the next two.
And you continued to operate the building for
12 years. I was there for 12 years. I closed the store in '96, which would have been, the year I closed it, we were starting our 60th year of business. It was tough.
It had to be a hard decision.
It was very tough.
But the retail, and by '96, the retail environment.
Retail environment in Phoenixville was really at a low. You had Phoenix Steel was closing. You had BF Goodrich had closed. Container Corporation closed. The West Company moved out of town. So you had all this happening in the '90s, and basically it was time to turn the page.
What are you doing today, Wayne?
Today I work for Ferguson Enterprises. I was lucky enough 11 years ago. I met a guy, and he said, hey, I was working for Richard Rosnes at the funeral home in the morning, and then I'd go work funerals, and then in the afternoon I'd go over, and this guy hired me, and I'd go and deliver second runs in a Ford F-550 stake body truck, and deliver to job sites, to plumbers. We're a plumbing supply company. And then they offered me a position inside, and I've been there 11 years, and I'm dispatcher 2. There is no dispatcher 1, there's dispatcher 2. And I go in at 6 o'clock, I'm done at 2:30, and I troubleshoot for my 16 drivers that are out there every day, trying to help them get phone numbers, they're missing product, things like that, so.
What are your memories of Bridge Street?
I can go back, like, I remember after the fire in the late 70s, I remember going downtown on a Thursday and Friday night, they were open till 9. And I remember on a Thursday or Friday night, there was a lot of traffic, and they used to have a policeman at the corner of Church and Main, Bridge and Main, Prospector Main, or Bank Alley, or Church Alley, whatever that. Is it bank or is it bank? Where Boston Shoe Store was. Is that was it? Bank Street? Okay. And then one at Gay Street, and a cop there directing traffic from 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock on, to the stores closed at 9 o'clock. And that was how Phoenixville was. You missed that.
You do.
You missed that.
Wings, thank you so much for being on board. And now, everybody, please welcome Ken and Sandy Zimmerman and their daughter Rachel, who owns Hiking Supervisor.
Rachel is now at transportation because I don't drive at night anymore. The new cars are angry at me when they come toward me. So she helps us out very, very, very much.
Rachel, thank you for making sure Ken and Sandy were able to be here. So tell us the story of Ken and Sandy Zimmerman.
Oh, I don't want to.
Sandy, tell us the story of Ken and Sandy Zimmerman.
Your story.
For me, I started out with Grants in Doylestown, if anybody knows where Doylestown is. I was a farm boy, and I took my mother shopping, and I was always attracted to that store because it was kind of neat. Grants had almost everything at that time. I thought, gee whiz, you can be cool in the summer and warm in the winter, which you couldn't be on a farm. So I said, I'm going to see what I can do. And I was hired. It was neat at Grants. And I was down with Grants for 12 years. I got a good, really good retail background because I could spend their millions of dollars. It didn't cost me a thing. If I made a mistake, ooh, we had to mark it down. That's as bad as it was. But when we went to Hunt and Sue, it was our money. Oh, what a difference. Real quick, I'm jumping all around, but we worked like fools to get the store ready, and then it was almost 2 o'clock in the morning. We were going to open the next 4 hours, 5 hours. And we went home, and I said to Sandy, oh my God, we have no money to put in the register. So we had a jar we were saving money for a washer. And we got in that, we got our own money, and we shook it out on the sheet on the bed, we sprayed it out into nickel, dimes, quarters, and pennies, and that's how we opened up. You know? Yeah.
The name Heidi Sue, by the way, is
$2.
Say what?
That's the picture I have back there.
that's right up on the screen right now. You see the two of us. And that would have been your opening?
Yeah. Yeah.
When did you open, Ken?
61?
81.
81.
September 19th.
Yeah.
Now, you opened in a building that was basically Phoenixville's variety store for almost a century.
Yeah.
Yes. So do you know anything about the history of the building?
I don't know much about it, no. They had the ends in the wall inside, and they had the end outside for Newberries. So it must have been built specifically for
I
Newberries.
think it was built in the 50s.
And then,
Late 40s, early 50s.
but, no, I don't know much about it.
Okay. It was Newberry's, it was Furloughs, it was, there was a lot of history in that building before Heidi Sue as well. Did you purchase the inventory when you opened the store, or was all that stuff that you purchased to sell?
It was built up over years. You know, we couldn't begin to afford that, to open up. And we opened up very thin. And I remember, God bless his soul, because he's not with us anymore, but my first cash customer was Paul Dworsky.
Paul Dworsky.
Yeah. And he bought a candy bar and gave me $1. Said, keep the change. Listen, this is your first $1.
Did you hang that dollar up in the store?
Yeah.
Of course, that was traditional.
And then I have very good hearing, And he walked out the door and he said, he'll never make it. And I thought it was a pretty cute compliment, you know. I felt good after that. How could you not feel good when somebody tells you you're not gonna make it?
What was it like opening a store in the 80s in Phoenixville?
We felt the need for it, really we did. There was, I'll tell you really quick, I know that I can't do anything quick, but a whitey story. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon and the guy came in. I went outside to put trash in a public trash can. And I happened to notice because he did a beautiful parking job and he had Arizona plates. And he came in the store and he had a piece of plumbing in his hand. And he said, I'm taking a long shot. Would you carry this? I'm like, we were always taught, if I don't have it, I didn't lose a sale.
Right.
So I said, no, I don't. But right across the street down there is a hardware store, and they will probably have it. So he was gone about 20 minutes. He came back, and I was so surprised when he came back in again. And I said, how'd you make out? He says, I just stopped back to say thank you to you. He said, I went down there with my plumbing part, and as soon as I walked in the door, there were 2 girls came up to me. I said, oh my God, I can't even tell them what I want. And he said, I couldn't believe it. She not only got me the part, she told me how to put it in. There you go.
That's a great story, but aside from that point, it tells the story of downtown retail.
Yeah.
I didn't have it. I'm not going to cost somebody the sale.
We always told them where they could get it from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because, like I said, we didn't lose the sale, so why not give it to somebody else?
Right.
So it would stay in town, you know, so somebody should get a sale out of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, what was Bridge Street like in the 80s and 90s? Because, you know, you're now competing directly with malls and stores like that. But you're thriving.
We lucked out, I guess, you know. We were very customer conscious. We did everything just like the girls. We made it happen, and we took very, very good care of our people and made them come back. It was fortunate.
Yeah, your windows, who did your windows?
She's had it in there, right?
But
I mean, I think I was like a baby in the window, so I feel like I did move eventually, and then after I could set stuff up, my parents would just tell me where to put things, and then I would put them there. But my favorite thing was eating lunch in the window, and people thought I was part of the display. And really, I was just like having pizza and watching Gilligan's Island on this tiny TV. Which was pretty good, and then you were hiding in that little heater spot with your lunch next door to me. That was a good time. Then Mom was running the register, and then we'd switch, we'd rotate out. But I think, I mean, I wasn't super aware in the 80s, but in the 90s, I think the important part about downtown is you could go anywhere else, but none of it was Phoenixville, right? Like none of it was a place you walked in. It was kind of like that show you watched, Cheers? That old show? Yeah, like, you know, everybody knew your name, and that was the thing. And like, my dad and mom would send me on errands, and everybody knew who I was. And then on the street, they would call out to me, "Little Heidi Sue, does your dad have XYZ?" And I was like, yes or no, because weirdly enough, just like you knew all the inventory, I also weirdly knew most of the inventory. So I'd be like, well, yeah, or I'd say like, I don't know, you can ask him though. But yeah, Little Heidi Sue.
I was just always amazed, if you walked into Heidi Sue, now think back to the store. You walk in there and you say, I need a 10-volt adapter with a female plug and in the color white. And one of the 3 of you would say, aisle 2, row 4, section 6. I have how you had to have a million items in there. How on earth did you do inventory or know what you had or know what you needed?
And it was
It was pre-computers.
pre-computer. It was up here and mostly Sandy.
Sandy, did you like do the books and the inventory and things like that?
Kenny did the books, I did the payroll, and the inventory, after the first year, we just kept it on paper. And when we opened the store, you know, we had the stuff we had bought for it, and Kenny would say, spread it out, make it look good. And then eventually it got to be that, like, we had to say, we don't have any space. But one of the, people appreciate, like, the sewing notions and things that they couldn't get anywhere else.
And that was one of the hallmarks of your store. You carried things you could not find anywhere else.
Yeah, we had their reputation, they couldn't find anywhere else, they sky us.
Go to Hike and Sew.
Go to Hike and Sew.
Last, not first.
Not last, but they did come back. We had very many loyal customers, and in the end, you know, when we decided to close, Kenny wasn't well. He just had, it was a tough year, and it was very hard for him to leave. You know, he had a lot of emotional, you know, after 35 years, a part of that.
Absolutely.
And today, we don't miss the store, we miss the people, the customers.
You had regular customers, like and I mentioned this to you, Kenny, and you laughed. Violet and Leonard were such a part of downtown Phoenixville. Everybody knows Violet and Leonard. Judy, you probably don't know. Violet and Leonard were patients in Pennhurst. Violet is part of a Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court decision from when Pennhurst was ordered closed. And they restructured how people with mental disabilities like Violet and Leonard were to be treated in society. And Violet and Leonard moved into, I guess, group homes in the area and had caretakers and people that watched them. But Violet and Leonard were always together, walking up and so many people are nodding their heads, they remember them. They would walk up and down Bridge Street all day long. They would always ask for coupons. But customers like Violet and Leonard, Ken, you must have like built long-time friendships with.
Oh, yes, we did.
Remember Liz and George?
Liz and George, yes.
And Sandy always went out of her way to help them out. Like when we took the utility payments.
Yeah.
And I remember one time, now think about this in today's world, she one time spent 4.5 hours to get a guy's wall phone. How was it?
Oh, you mean the cell phone one, they wouldn't service them, and we had a language block?
Yeah, and she spent 4.5 hours with this one customer to get his phone straightened out. I mean,
We tried.
I kept looking at her, like, we got things to do.
But that level of compassion again,
Oh, yeah.
you don't see that today.
And, you know, the funny thing, one pastor, she said, Kenny don't really run a store, he has a mission. I thought it was really cute.
But that's you, Ken. That is, you know, from my years of knowing you, that sums you up perfectly. And thank you for being that person.
Thank you.
How did you reach that decision to close the store? It was health or?
Yeah, like Sandy said, I got very sick, and while they were kind of moving out of the store, I was thinking I was going to help them, but I wasn't even there. I was there physically, but not there, and it was tough. And people said, how did you ever get rid of all that inventory?
That was my next question.
Well, believe it or not, we donated it.
You donated the entire store's inventory.
$200,000 we donated to two different charities. And a selfish but a cute story. We never got a thank you card.
Ken, I think all of us will extend a thank you for that.
The craziest part about closing the store though was my brother and I would come home, like I was in grad school at the time, Joel was in college, so he was in the city. I was city adjacent, I was in like Mount Airy area. We would come home after school and we'd all pack boxes or pull boxes from the stock room. And we found a lot of treasures, like a lot of treasures of history, even in that. So that was really cool, like to see you know, I like asked my dad, like, where did that come from? He was like, oh, that was from, and then launch into a story. So it was pretty cool. Like, as sad as that experience was to have to leave, like, that was my entire childhood, to be honest. That was like my home before our actual home. I thought at one point I could have maybe been born there, and I wouldn't have known the difference. But yeah, it was, I think it was also like sort of therapeutic to have that time to do that.
Yep. Ken and Sandy, what are you doing today?
I'm doing very little.
Senior center?
Kenny goes to the senior center for breakfast just about every morning and lunch. And then he hangs out at the library or comes home and picks up sticks and takes a walk at the Y on Saturdays. I had to get an apartment because I can't stay at home that's not handicap equipped. So I'm living in Hankin Manor, and Kenny comes a couple times a week, and we talk, every morning, every day, at least once or twice, and it's a very strange situation that I never thought we'd have, but I'm hoping that I get better so I can go back home. But Hankin Manor is a very nice place, and Rachel comes and helps me because I just, I think I sold my body to the store. The warranty ran out, and nobody told me so. But we're good, life is very good to us. We've been very blessed with all the people that we've met over the years and that have been kind to us, and that we in turn were, shared our love of this town. So.
Sandy, thank you so much for sharing that. We have a minute or two if anybody has any questions or any comments about, the memories that have been stirred up by our guests tonight, or anything else to share about downtown. Go ahead.
Okay, I have something for Heidi Sue grouping there. I had an exchange student from Switzerland come and bought a tap at Heidi Sue. And she went back to Switzerland and it got lost. And she called me up and she said, could you please go back to that store and get that tap? And she described it. And you pulled it out. And then I packaged it and mailed it to Switzerland.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly.
Anyone else with anything to share from downtown?
Well, Ed, I was there the day or even your store burned down. We had Weber's shoe store next door. And I was parked, I was with my mom. She ran down the hill as the fire was going on. I was up by the Central Lutheran, which is historical, waiting for her. I don't know how long I was in the car, but I just remember what. And we were so worried, we didn't know if there was a firewall.
They had an incredible firewall between those two
And we
buildings.
didn't know whether that was there or not. We didn't know whether our store would collapse.
And not knowing that until when they started tearing the building, I think it was like an 18 to 24 inch firewall between the two buildings.
At the time when the fire was going on, we didn't know that.
Yeah.
And fortunately it was there, so.
Now, you'll notice we've got this big crowd here tonight. We're going to do another Where We Shopped, and we might be asking you to come out for that, please. Yes.
My grandfather owned Allen's.
Allen's, okay.
If anyone remembers that.
Yeah, of course,
He
yeah.
had Allen's here, in Hudson, he had Tiger's in the window, which is still open, and he had cancer.
Fantastic. Remember Allen? I remember my father taking me to Allen's for clothing. Anybody else? Kurt?
I just remember Whitey working at the bank at Phoenixville. After Whitey.
Oh, yeah, you were.
Your dad worked at Phoenixville also?
Yes.
How old was he?
He got tired of being at home, and he came to Phoenixville to work for a little bit, yes.
How about that?
Yes.
Ken?
It was Christmas time on Bridge Street, and the family were walking up and down Bridge Street, we walked past Whitey's was in the window, facing the window. And then my family got a little bit up towards the Colonial Theater, they realized I wasn't with them anymore. So they backed backtracked and they found me in Whitey's window.
Carl, you know what I think is neat today? Like, I don't know, when you go down Bridge Street today, a man who's not with us anymore, Tom Mitchell, a few years back, raised money through Kiwanis and some other organizations, and they put the new Christmas lights that we have downtown now. That brings back a memory of when they used to have them all up and downtown, and his goal was to do that before he died. Big Tom Mitchell did that for us.
You say that about the Christmas lights. One of my greatest memories of Thanksgiving. That was when Thanksgiving night was the first night the Christmas lights went off. Because I remember we would have Thanksgiving dinner at my house, and we would drive my grandmother home to Royersford, and we would drive through Spring City and see all the lights, and then downtown Royersford and see all the lights. And then we come to, but you drove around towns Thanksgiving night, because that was the first night the Christmas lights were turned on.
They used to, they used to have what they called Turkey Days. The Daily Republican ran it. There's a name from the band. And you got the rolls of tickets, and for every dollar you spent, you got a ticket. So you'd have somebody come in, spend a couple $100 on a suit, you're stealing water. But you get to a point now, when I'm at a fundraiser helping somebody, I can split those tickets like that. Just from all the years of doing the Turkey Days thing.
Well, we're coming up to the end of our time here, and I just want to take one more minute to thank Judy Bat-Yarnell, Joan and Beth Sikorsky, Ed Wisniewski, Ken and Sandy Zimmerman and Rachel. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming out and supporting Historic Society programs. Please let us know if there's stuff that you'd like to see us do in the future. We'd love to keep having programs that everybody will get involved in. This is beautiful seeing such a crowd come out tonight. And thanks everybody for being here. Have a great night.
And one more thing, let's give Carl a big round of applause. If someone may be missing an earring, check your ears. There's an extra earring just found. I'll put it right here on the table. Also, one last thing, just many thanks to the Methodist Church for letting us share this space. We wondered how we were going to, and refreshments. My wife's pointing, there's a ton of refreshments. Grab a brownie, a cookie, a chocolate, all kinds of goodies back there. I know it's late, but on your way out, the Historical Society always eats well. So anyway, thanks again, all the panel and Carl.